This is a public service announcement brought to you by Hindsight. Relax, rest your eyes, and listen to the words of Pastor Chuck.
24th chapter of Matthew, and we will continue our study here in chapter 24. As Jesus is giving to the disciples the signs of his coming again and the end of the world system of governments that are in rebellion against God. Way back in the book of Daniel, as Nebuchadnezzar the king was one evening wondering what was going to happen to the world, the Lord gave to him a dream in which he showed to him the future of the world, the kingdoms and governments of man that would reign over the earth. This dream was in the form of a great image that necessitated the interpretation by Daniel. And he told the king that the image with its different metals represented the various kingdoms that would rule, beginning with the Babylonian kingdom and ending with a federation of 10 nations that were related somehow to the Roman Empire, iron and clay. But Nebuchadnezzar, while he was watching this image transfixed, he saw a stone come out of the mountains, not cut with hands, and it smote the great image in its feet, or the final government of man, and the whole image, the world system, the world governments collapsed. And the stone grew into a mountain that covered the earth. And in the interpretation that Daniel gave to the king, he told him that that stone was the time when the God of heaven would come and would reign over the earth, bring an end to the reign of man. And so the disciples are wondering about this. What will be the signs of the coming of Jesus Christ and the end of the worldly governments dominated by Satan and his rebellion against God? So as Jesus is giving them the signs, and we looked at many of them last week, tonight as we begin in verse 24, he is speaking of the false Christ and the false prophets. Now, in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, we are told about the false Messiah. He is called the beast. And there is with him this false prophet who causes the world to worship the beast. There shall arise false Christ and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they would deceive the very elect. Paul the apostle, writing about this man of sin that is coming upon the earth, who will actually be the final world ruler in dictatorial power. As Paul writes about him in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, beginning with verse 9, Paul said, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. Notice Jesus said, great signs and wonders. And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the love of the truth that they might be saved. And for this cause, God shall send them a strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So this false Messiah, coming with signs and wonders, as John writes about him in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, beginning with verse 11, writing of the false prophet that shall arise after the Antichrist to lead the world in worshiping him. He said, I beheld another beast, that is the false prophet, coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. And he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and he caused the earth and those that dwelt therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders. Notice again, Jesus said great signs and wonders. So that he makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceives them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had the power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and he caused that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he have the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So this false prophet doing miracles and wonders, Jesus warns that there will be the false Christ, false prophets, showing great signs and wonders. Now, the Antichrist, the false prophet, will be able to do signs and wonders, miracles. Both Paul and John speak of their deceiving. And here Jesus said, if it were possible, they would deceive the very elect. Now in verse 31, when Jesus sends his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the 4 winds, from one end of heaven to the other. We have 2 mentions of the elect here in the 24th chapter. And the identity of the elect is very important. And if the elect here are the church, which Peter speaks of the church as elect of God, then it would put the church in the Great Tribulation period. But if the elect is the nation Israel, which I will attempt to show you when we get to verse 31, then that gives the place for the rapture of the church, and the church not being here during this time that the Antichrist is revealed and the Great Tribulation is taking place upon the earth. One of the first events, I believe, that will take place after the church is raptured will be the revelation of the Antichrist. In Revelation chapter 4, I believe that you have the place of the rapture of the church in the book of Revelation. When John heard the voice as of a trumpet saying to him, "Come up hither, and I will show you things which will be after these things." After what things? After the things of chapters 2 and 3. What are the things of chapter 2 and 3? The things of the church. The messages of Jesus to the church, to the churches. So what will happen after the church? A door open in heaven. The voice like of a trumpet saying, "Come up hither, I'll show you things that will take place after these things." Immediately John was in the Spirit. He was caught up into heaven, and there he saw the throne of God and heard the worship of the cherubim about the throne of God, saw the response of the 24 elders. He then saw the scroll in the right hand of him who sat upon the throne. He heard the angel proclaim with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to take the scroll and loose the seals?" And then he saw Jesus as a lamb that had been slaughtered as he came and took the scroll out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. And he heard the multitudes in heaven as they sang, "Worthy is the Lamb to take the scroll and loose the seals, for he has redeemed us by his blood out of every nation, family, tribe, and tongue, and he's made us unto our God kings and priests." That's a song that only the church can sing there in heaven in chapter 5.
You have been listening to Pastor Chuck. This public service announcement has been brought to you by Hindsight. If you found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and comment if you wish. We at Hindsight says thank you for your time.